Today, we're going to learn how to load your Azure DevOps data into ActionableAgile Analytics. This is a step-by-step guide with a lot of theory sprinkled throughout, so feel free to pause whilst you load your data with us. The first step is to navigate to the Dataset drop-down menu and select Create New Dataset. A window will appear with Step 1 on how to create a dataset. Start by giving your dataset a unique name. If you're unsure what to choose, pick your data source first and then give it a name that reflects that choice. Users can choose to load their work items from a query, board or Teams. The query must be pre-made and the user must have permission to view it. As queries are usually specifically crafted, we do not include the option to edit area paths. Loading by board prompts you to first select a team and then choose a board for analysis. This action loads data specific to that board. In the mapping stage, you will see the board columns with their mapped states available for editing. The board option lets you view and edit the area paths in use. The final option involves loading via Teams, which prompts you to select one or multiple. This functionality enables the analysis of flow across multiple teams while maintaining historical data, even if board designs undergo modifications. Additionally, you can view and edit the area paths associated with this option. Enable Get Cross-Project Work Item History if you want to track work items that have moved across different Azure projects. This only works if you have the correct permissions in Azure. As suggested, we respect the permissions set in Azure, so you won't be able to load data you don't have access to. Stakeholders will not be able to load data at all, so be sure to check your permissions with your project administrator. You can also apply filters for created after and resolved after so that you can limit the items in the dataset. Please note, for resolved after to take effect, there must be a date in the resolved by field. By default, ActionableAgile brings in key fields such as ID, title, work item type, priority, area path, iteration path, etc. But you may want to add some additional fields. You can do this from the available fields list. Select any additional fields you want to include and use the arrows to add or remove single or multiple fields from your dataset. You can filter via any default or additional fields included in your dataset, allowing you to focus your analysis. When you're finished with your selection, hit Next to navigate to the last step of the data loading process. The third and final step in the data loading process is the mapping stage, which requires users to map their data the way they would like it to appear in the tool. Depending on which data source you chose in Step 1, you'll either see column names from your chosen board or state names that work items from your teams or query have used. The white lozenges with your board column or state names contain transition dates from your workflow history. They tell the story of how your work moved through your chosen workflow. The blue-headed grey boxes they sit in are the workflow stages in ActionableAgile. So how you map your data into these boxes determines how it is plotted and visualized in the tool. When a workflow stage has data from a singular column or state within it, it will only show when items entered and left that column or state. So for example, if you were loading by board, it could be ideal to have a workflow stage for each column, as it would be a one-to-one representation of your workflow. However, if you load by teams or query, and thus by state, you may not have a set workflow, as the work items you are loading can be from multiple sources. Thus, you may want to edit your workflow. You can merge workflow stages by clicking and dragging one workflow stage into another. It is especially useful if you have similar columns or states such as committed or approved, or simply do not need to have granularity between certain columns or states. You can add workflow stages by selecting the Add Stage button, and they can delete workflow stages by selecting the trash can icon in the chosen workflow stage. Users can rename their workflow stages to reflect any changes in mapping given. For example, it may be that you're loading data from multiple teams whom use a pre-approval process, but they're named differently. You want to map them to the same place, but you're more familiar with committed over approved, so you rename the workflow stage to what you're familiar with. Sometimes, especially if you're loading a wide range of data, you may see columns or states that have been retired, renamed, deleted, or that you simply don't recognize, and you may wish to leave them unmapped. We strongly recommend against this. As previously mentioned, each lozenge contains the transition dates of how every item in your dataset moved through your workflow. Removing these from your workflow stages is like ripping pages out of a book. The story is no longer complete, which leaves you to fill in the gaps. And ActionableAgile will do that, because the data doesn't disappear when it's left unmapped. It is simply adrift, and the tool will try its best to anchor it somewhere, but without a captain to steer, it will often end up off course in your workflow. An undesirable end indeed. If you are unsure where to map your data, we have a simple rule to follow which is based on the underlying methodology of the tool itself. Cycle time, throughput, work in progress, and work item age are the 4 key flow metrics this tool is built upon. How they're calculated depends on what you designate as your start and finish, as this in turn defines which work is considered not started, active, and finished. So how does this relate to where you map your data? Well, it's all about chronology. Your first workflow stage is your not started stage. Any column or state mapped here should be the very start of your workflow, like backlog or to-do. Next comes your active workflow stages, like in progress, analysis, and review. All columns or states mapped to these workflow stages is when your work is defined as active. Lastly is your finished workflow stage, think done, resolved, cancelled, etc. This is the end point of your work item's journey. They're finished in some way or another. Making sure that columns or states are mapped in such a way ensures that their journey is plotted correctly. If an item is moved backward from stage A to a previous stage, B, the date stamp recorded for stage A, and any subsequent stages it moved through are removed, and the accumulated time that the item spent in the downstream stages that were removed is then added to the cumulative time spent in the destination workflow stage, B. This makes it appear as if the item had been continuously in the prior stage since its original entry date. This ensures that our charts, which are founded upon time metrics, do not show the past in the future and vice versa. You do not want your cumulative flow diagram going down. Hit finish and your data will be loaded into the tool. Now that your data is loaded into the tool, you can check to see the parameters of the dataset at any time by selecting the Information button on the right-hand side of the dataset drop-down menu. You can also favorite, refresh, edit or delete your loaded dataset under the Currently Viewing tab in the Dataset drop-down menu. You can load, rename, edit or delete any dataset via the Find or Manage a Dataset window. Editing will allow you to change any part of your dataset, from the data source and area paths in Step 1, adding or removing any fields in Step 2, and rearranging and changing your mapping in Step 3. This will take effect as soon as you click Finish. If you want to check your data integrity, the Source Data chart gives you a clear tabular view of the data you've loaded in. This makes it super easy for users to check accuracy, troubleshoot any hiccups, and keep an eye on workflow history. The chart is great for auditing workflow movements, identifying anomalies, verifying timestamps, and catching any backward flow of work items that could impact cycle time data. Just make sure you're using the raw data view. This way, it'll make sure no filters are in effect. That's it for data loading. So what's next? Head on over to our chart tutorials playlist to find out which chart does what and how flow metrics work. This will help you utilize the tool so you can operate with greater predictability, make timely adjustments, and continuously improve your efficiency and delivery speed.